These hot takes are rated E for everyone.
A rotational quarterback. Like that's going to be a while. I think they'll go to the
Hot take season. Hot take season.
What up, what up? Thanks for tuning in to another segment of Hot Take Season, where these hot takes are rated E for everybody. I'm your host, Mia Me. I've got Grace here co-hosting this segment with me. How are you, Grace?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. Loving
Good.
the background so far.
What background? What are you talking about? It's just a normal background. I mean, I'm just shouting out the biggest scammer that professional basketball has ever seen, most fraudulent individual to ever grace the basketball court, you know?
Man, we're gonna get into Harden. We gonna get into it. But first,
Yeah, tonight's about the W though. I just I have to take all my hot take moments to call him out and host that maybe one day he'll see and he'll become a better person, a better player.
there
It's
might
doubtful,
be
but there's a chance.
There might be somebody in the W we might have to swap out his face with, but we gonna see.
Yeah.
How the night goes. You know what I mean? So WNBA Finals. Give me your quick rundown of takeaways. What did you get from it?
My takeaways is that this continues to be the best year that women's basketball has seen, arguably since the 96 Dream Team.
Mhm.
It's been a really special year in growth and exposure, selling out Barclays, selling out the Aces Arena, like several other sellouts. This is not to be underwhelming and downplayed. So I think it's a really special year for women's basketball overall. Not to mention what's happening on the court. We're seeing some phenomenal playing. The level keeps evolving. I think we're seeing Asian turn into the Michael Jordan of women's basketball, topping some of the greats potentially. And I love the greats and the those that paved the way for women's basketball, but I think she's doing something really special right before our eyes. Sydney Colson becoming the face of the league as she's manifested, being the funniest player in the league, but also like the most personable. Yeah. And I think it's just a really special year in terms of the performance. We're seeing players break records. We talked about that all season long, all the records that have been broken. Just, the WNBA is making a statement. The expansion team coming. So I think that the takeaways from the finals is that this is just the beginning of a beautiful and bright future for women's basketball overall, especially for the WNBA.
Yeah, I think you're right. We saw so much growth in the league this season, from the records that were broken and to the strides they made on and off the court. We saw a lot of growth. But the finals per se, we did see an amazing series from Asia Wilson. Arguably probably should have been the MVP. I think Stewie's production kind of went up and down a lot this season, whereas Asia was the most consistent. And it's funny because she was the one asked about her performance in one game where she didn't, perform to what we were used to seeing her at. But for the most part, Asia was consistent throughout the league, throughout the season, and throughout this series. Sydney Colson, of course, being that vet in the locker room, but it makes you wonder, how long can the Aces stay on top? They built this roster from the ground up, but eventually things are going to have to shake up, so it's like, who do you keep around? Who do you let go? We saw that they can.
I don't think we're going to see a lot of changes.
That's going to be
I think
interesting.
If they can manage it, they're going to keep it pretty consistent.
Yeah, you would love to see it that way. But we speak of an expansion team coming in, so a lot of rosters are going to get broken up. But then the money factor is going to be a thing. And I think it was interesting to me because when Chelsea Gray and Kia Stokes went out in this series, it was like, was Chelsea Gray the Achilles heel? And I've always said throughout the season, Vegas is just that juggernaut team to where four of the 5 of their starters are like that. You know what I mean? And to see one go down, well, two with Kia Stokes, go down, and then they lose that game, and you go, this could really be an interesting season now. But then they still rally it together in game 4, to go ahead and win the whole thing. So a special roster for sure, but you wonder, just when is it going to break up? How long can they stay on top?
I'll be honest. I call myself a dual Aces Wings fan. I'm happy either way. I'm really happy to see the Aces go back to back. I predicted it. Check the Instagram story if you doubted me. But I think personally that they're gonna try to keep the roster as close. It's a business at the end of the day, so they're gonna have to make business decisions. Um, they're gonna. We didn't see the big Hamby move. I
Mhm.
don't know that we saw a ton of shakeup. There were some smaller pieces moving because of the Requina situation and a few other things. But as a whole, they're two some most of their bench stay the same. So I think starters, I'd be very, very surprised if I see any of the starters leave. I think do you agree that or if we see yeah, I would be shocked if any of the starters leave. Just because typically would be the time where you would see a starter on a championship team start to seek other opportunities to be the star player. But I don't get that kind of vibe from this team that that's the dynamic of, and that's the kind of decision somebody would make. Just because they have on and off the court chemistry, and they all seem genuinely happy to be part of the organization. So I think they have at least one more in them until
Mhm.
that expansion draft. But also the expansion draft is great because that's more roster spots. Like I said, there's only 12 more. We need more. We need to expand the rosters. One more expansion team, then we might be getting somewhere. But also, there's a lot of young talent coming out
Yeah.
that might shake up some of these other rosters on these other teams that might give them a little bit more run for their money because this young talent, they're elevated. They have a different game. Um, and so it's gonna be interesting to see. It's a fun future for the league, but I think they have at least. I think they're gonna go the three-peat. I'm
Yeah.
calling it three-peat.
All right, that's your first hot take of the night. I think they can honestly stay on top going into next season. Well, throughout the duration of next season. At most, I see them moving some bench pieces. Um, because as far as that first starting five, I think they're solid. It's a question of is Candace Parker going to retire, or is she going to come back? And then just even with Sydney Colson, how long do you
Yeah,
keep her around? If you're not playing her much, she's a big piece
thrown
of
in a coaching position because I think the organization needs her no matter what. And
right,
so
right.
with that, not including Sydney, I can think who I won't say any names because I like the team and respect everybody. But I don't know if we agree, but I can think of at least two other rosters that could move, especially to get Candace back an open spot,
Hmm.
which would be sad, but also it's a business. And maybe those players will have great opportunities now that there's another championship on the resume to get an
Right.
opportunity somewhere else on another roster.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. As far as those other three teams who were the top made that top four, well, yeah, top four. And I'm speaking of Dallas, New York, and Connecticut. What do you think they could do to better compete or get over the hump? Because this is the thing. This playoffs was full of sweeps. Like full of sweeps, round
Yeah.
one, round two, you know what I mean?
I think it's
Um,
worth noting, and I'm not just saying this because this is the hometown team, but Dallas is the team in the playoffs that gave Aces the Aces most run for their money.
mhm,
It may have been a sweep in the series, but every game they went out there and there was only maybe one game where it'd be considered a blowout, but they fought to the end. So I think that's worth noting, giving Dallas a little bit of credit. But I think we talked about in terms of what we think Dallas needs. Dallas needs a dog,
mhm.
somebody who's not going to be. We love that they're a team of lovely young ladies with beautiful personalities. We need a dog that's not going to care. We need an Alyssa Thomas.
Yeah.
I think Connecticut might be next up for a finals spot next year. I think we Connecticut Aces matchup if things I think they will. I think the Liberty are on their way, but um, I think I think it was Asia that said you can't make a super team in a couple of months. Somebody said that last night. I
Yeah.
don't remember exactly who it was, but it's true. They've done some phenomenal things this season, but at the end of the day, the team with the most chemistry, the most talent, the best. What's the word I'm looking for? Because the talent is head to head, but in terms of they wanted it more at the end of the day.
Mhm.
The Aces wanted it more, and they showed it. Game four, I didn't think that we were gonna get a game four win. I thought it was gonna go to five for sure. Without Kia Stokes, without Chelsea Gray, I was like, I have hope, but I don't see it happening. And that starting lineup shook it up a little bit, and I was like, wow, okay. And I think it showed the fact that while the Aces could be considered a super team, they have the ability to be a regular team as well. You're missing two big pieces. If they weren't on the roster any other time, they'd just be any other normal team in the league.
Right.
So I think in that ways, it kind of proved their worth in a different dynamic than a lot of people would consider.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. New York. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Uh-oh, we got a
So
hot take coming. It feels like we got a hot take coming.
my issue is, and I'm not
People getting
saying,
shoes and not showing up.
you know, I'm not saying, you have to be giving me 30 points every night, but we're talking about the finals here. I'm not understanding how the MVP only has 10 points in the finals
I love the
game.
Stewie, but I don't understand either. I think it confirmed what everybody else thinks is that Asia got robbed. If anything, it should have been between Asia and Alyssa Thomas.
Mhm.
I still think the person who gave that fourth place vote needs to go ahead and stand on it, stand on business, and let everybody know who they were. We're all curious, like,
Right.
who's the hater?
Yeah.
Um,
I don't get that 10 points. In a game like that. You're
and that
no
last
good.
shot by Vandersloot was questionable for one of the greatest shooters in league history.
So let's go back because I feel as though if New York calls a timeout sooner than what they did, you have time to better draw up a play. And I mean, it was a good play. But with a few more seconds, Jonquil has time to get the rebound and put it back in. But
I
it
personally
was
think when
there.
Stewie was driving, she should have dumped it off to Jonquil.
Yeah,
Because they were both in motion at the same time. Something that would have been a better chance.
yeah. But Vandersloot is not the Vandersloot this year, at least from a couple of seasons ago, where a shot like that, she's definitely knocking it down. You know what I mean? So it was questionable for one for her to have the last shot just because of the up and down she's experienced this season. But at any rate, I didn't expect her to airball it. Break it, okay, but an airball is a bit much.
I think that we're seeing Vandersloot at transition period of her career where she's probably in the last couple of years, if we're all realistic about it. I hope for every player to get to play as long as they can, but she's getting older, and I think that's what we're seeing. But unpopular opinion, I think Jones should have been in the game at that time. The shooter Jones, I think I'm saying her name right, Jones.
Yeah,
Um,
Joanna, yeah.
they should have drawn the play up for her because she's a big shot, big moment shooter, and I think she got it in her to make that shot. But interesting choice.
You would think, because to me, she can shoot like Steph Curry, believe it or not. But
Yeah,
she is more of she gives me the feel of like a Peja Stojakovic on the Mavericks. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Where she can just come up and be that clutch spot up shooter for you. And so you're right. I think in that moment, that's somebody you would want to have in the game. But as far as just her over the duration of the season, yeah, she's that spot up shooter that you want. But I think New York has some roster moves to make. Your girl Sabrina is not living up to the hype. She's not doing it for me. And that's crazy because she's even broken records this season. But in totality, it's just now I think she had what 13 points maybe?
You know what I think? I think she's a phenomenal player. Like nobody can take that away from her. But when it comes to her time in New York so far, she's had some big shots and big moments, but it's highlights.
Mm-hmm.
None of them have been, I won't say none, but we haven't seen them manifest into something like showing up big time during championship game when everything's on the line.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of dynamic, consistent performance. It's it's a sizzle reel, which I hate saying that because as someone who's a hooper, make it to the league, I never want to downplay a player's ability.
Right.
But like you said, it's not doing it. Maybe
Not living
she
up
can
to the
come to
hype.
Dallas. I don't know that work in Dallas, but I don't know where I would see her on a roster next year that I don't know
Mm-hmm. I think New
that would
York
work.
really has a lot of roster moves to make.
Yeah.
That big three just didn't. it just didn't live up to what it potentially could have been.
Mhm.
And their bench has to get stronger if they want to. You know what I mean? It's crazy because they're the number 2 seed, but that bench to me just wasn't it to get over the hump. Connecticut, on the other hand, I think they have roster move changes to make as well. But keeping Dewana and Alyssa, of course, is going to be what you need to keep at the core of that to expound on that situation. And then they were without Brianna Jones, for a good portion of the season. So to get
Yeah.
her back, if she's able to come back healthy and be what she was before, then that's a different ball game. And maybe Connecticut gives the Aces a run for their money in that regard.
I think so. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Do you think that going into next season, we're looking at Diana Taurasi's farewell tour with the All-Star game in Phoenix
Possibly. If not, Phoenix, in my
next year, the
opinion,
year
would
after?
probably need to give her a lesser role. I don't think you would try to give her as many minutes, or expect her to just be the driving force on that team in a starting role or a star powered role. I think you have to lessen her role, or you go ahead and let that be her farewell tour. But
While we're
speaking
talking
of,
about Phoenix,
yeah,
you know what I'm about to say, don't you?
go ahead, get it out.
Where is Skylar Diggins Smith gonna hit the court next year? Because I know it's not. Let's be honest, we all know it's not gonna be in Phoenix.
Yeah.
That's not where we're gonna see her hit the court unless some miracle reconciliation happens, and which is possible with the new coach. But I think that for her, she needs to go somewhere, maybe come back to Dallas where she's loved and appreciated and respected,
Hmm.
and would never get the maternity leave treatment that she's received in other places.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion.
Let me ask you this. Could you see her in Connecticut?
Yeah, I actually could. I
Yeah.
could. That would be a problem. That would be
Yeah.
dangerous.
I think if we get the same Skylar Diggins before her absence, yeah, but that's tough because she's older.
I think
Um
we're gonna see a slightly different player, and I think it's gonna be more IQ because I was watching one of her recent videos and I think she said she gained like 50 pounds after the last baby. And so I know she's back in the mode of getting back to playing condition and whatnot. So I think not only getting back into playing condition, she's had 2 babies and she's getting older. So bodies start changing at a certain point. So I think that this is a point where we start to see players play smarter and not play as athletically as they've known to be historically. So I think it could be a cool moment to see her
mhm.
transition her game, probably more than likely from just the style that she plays because of the physical changes.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, while we're on the topic of Phoenix, they're bringing in Nate Tibbetts, assistant coach from the Orlando Magic, as their head coach, making him the highest paid WNBA coach, I believe, in WNBA history. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Yes,
I see you got a lot to say on that, so I'm
I
gonna
got feelings.
let you.
Um, I don't work for the league. I'm not a hiring manager.
Yeah.
I love basketball and I'm a lifelong learner of the game and lover of the game. I don't claim to have the best basketball IQ or basketball mind. I checked out Buddy's resume. Great.
Hmm.
I could see him, you know, being co-head coach of an NBA team. Um, well paid. But what on this man's resume qualifies him to come in besides can I state the obvious? And
Yes.
it's gonna be real controversial.
Go
And I
ahead.
don't care because we need to address the pay gap, the wage gap,
Hmm.
shatter the glass ceiling, the fact that he's a white male.
Hmm.
What besides that qualifies him to be the highest paid coach in the league? If anything, Becky should be the highest paid coach in the league right now.
Facts.
There's several other coaches that could qualify. The math just ain't mathing for me. And I know, like, shout out to him and his agent, phenomenal negotiating skills, get your bag, but at the same time, it's not okay in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
Um, there's just, I don't like it. I don't know about you.
I don't
I
I don't
don't.
like it either. To me it's kind of I just feel like we keep saying how the league takes a step forward and then take two backwards.
Yep.
It's almost like a slap in the face, And I
Yeah.
say that specifically because of his resume. Yes, he's coached in the NBA. He's coached
G
in the
League.
G League as a head coach, but at the NBA level, he's only been an assistant coach. So now you bring him in to coaching a women's league, and you have to wonder his knowledge of the women's game, of the players he's inheriting, and how to deal with the challenges that women face within that league. Um, I don't know. Muffet
I don't think the
McGraw,
contract's gonna hold. I don't think he's gonna last more than one season.
it's going to be interesting. I mean, he's got a lot of weight on his shoulders now because you've made him the highest paid coach. But the great Muffet McGraw said, you know, women are hired based on their success. Men are hired based on their potential. And that is so
Yep.
true in this situation. You just made him the highest paid coach based on what you think he could do versus what he's shown you he could do. I don't even think he's taken the G League team to the championship that he was head coach for. So it's what else is it? You know, what else is it to make you pull the trigger?
Whose brother, whose cousin, whose uncle is he?
Right.
Whose homeboy is he? I legitimately, have you heard of this man before this announcement that he was gonna be signed as the coach?
I've heard of him, but I don't think to the magnitude you would expect before you hire him as a head coach.
Exactly. I'm like, who is this guy? You know that little meme clip? And hopefully maybe you can drop it in here. Wait a minute. Who are you? That's how I feel about this. It doesn't make sense to me. Not that I don't think coaches or players shouldn't be paid due diligence for their worth, for their experience, but I don't know that he has the worth, and I won't question his worth. That's not fair to me for me to say.
Right.
I don't know that his experience qualifies him to be paid this amount. Transitioning to, let's be real, the women's basketball game is completely different from the men's game in a lot of dynamics. I don't know that he's qualified to make that change since we haven't seen, according to what I've seen of his resume, maybe there's something we don't know about. Maybe he was a high school women's basketball coach at some point,
Right.
or an assistant college coach, but I don't see anything that justifies any of that.
Yeah. And so let me make this clear. We're not saying that he shouldn't be allowed to coach in the league. What we are saying is the price that he's getting paid to coach in the league doesn't add up to what you would give somebody with an extensive resume or a proven resume to coach at that level.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be interesting because, again, he has a lot of weight on his shoulders. You're coming into a new roster, into a new chaotic situation, based off of the chaos they've had with Skylar Diggins, the whole situation of getting Brittany Griner back into herself and her role on the team, and then you have all these other roster changes that you're needing to make. We'll see. Good luck on that.
I hope that Brittany Griner and Diana Taurasi hold him accountable to be the kind of coach that the organization needs and is paid for. I think those are two players with the biggest voices to do that. And I hope maybe we'll be shocked. Maybe they're gonna go get a championship next year. Who knows?
I don't know. It's going to be one of those things where it's like you can't expect him to get a championship the next year, but how long are you going to leave him around to get it together? You know, because coaches have to have a chance to get in there, work their situation out, you know, but
Absolutely.
going into a situation that he's going into, that's a lot of work that needs to be done. So it's like, how long when is enough going to be enough? You know what I mean? Like, is it 3 years down the line? Are you expecting a championship or longer than that? You know?
We'll have to do a follow-up episode on this specific subject in a year from now and see what
For
happens.
sure, for sure. Your Dallas Wings, what do they need?
I think we're gonna see some roster shakeups. And I don't know where it's gonna lead. I know we still have Enrique on contract for like 1 or 2 more years. Natasha Howard's still on contract. Satu's a free agent, and they better get it together and do right and make sure that they close that deal. Tierra, I don't know. No.
It's been a ride.
Huh?
It's been a ride with her.
And I'm forgetting somebody. Who am I forgetting? The starting five. Dog. I'm hitting a brain fart. That's
Satu,
the big four of the starting five.
Sierra.
Crystal Dangerfield.
Yes.
I don't know how long we have her on contract for, but personally, I don't know that we'll see her next season, unfortunately.
Mhm.
The bench needs some shaking up. Lou Lopez is going to be back.
Mhm.
Diamond Shields should be back. So those are two spots
Mhm.
that got to move around to make space for them.
Yes.
Um,
The other
I think
girl
they should make
they
the.
drafted.
Hmm?
There was another girl they drafted. I cannot think of her name.
Oh, Maddie Segrist.
No, no, no. She was injured as well.
They
Uh,
waived her, right?
I think she's coming back though.
Oh,
She's.
because I thought the first round draft pick, I thought they waived her.
I think they had to because she was injured. For the sake
Oh,
of the
okay.
roster spot, but I think she's coming back. I
That
can't
makes
think of her
sense.
name, and that's killing me. Um, but
So that
yeah.
leaves a couple players that we have questions about.
Hmm.
One in particular, I won't say her name. Great person from what I've seen and know. Um, but it'll be interesting to see if she remains on the roster next season.
Hmm.
She showed up more in some big moments than we've seen, I think, during the rest of her time with the franchise. But it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, we need the European game version of her, and we only saw it a couple times this season. And from a business perspective, I don't know that that justifies keeping her on the roster.
Hmm.
I do think that Tierra McCowan had an amazing season on the post, but we need like a nasty post presence. I think she's too soft isn't the word because she has her moments where she's not soft at all.
Hmm.
Um, she's a little fragile, I guess you could say. I think we've
I
all
think,
seen those moments where she
yeah.
kind of folds under pressure a little bit, and
Hmm.
hopefully, maybe that's not something that can't be changed.
Right.
So maybe that's one of the things on her list to work on in the off season, and maybe that'll be a different thing that we see next season.
I think unless you're going to bring in someone better than Kalani, you have to keep Kalani Brown on this.
Absolutely, I think she deserves a contract
Yeah.
for sure.
I'd like to see Maddie Segrist get more playing time next season. Um,
Yes.
a toss up in what you do because you mentioned Crystal Dangerfield, and I love her on this roster, especially her defense. Um,
Mhm.
and she can run the floor. So it's a question of, Dangerfield.
I think we need more offensive contribution from her. She, like just like Odyssey, she needs that green light. Those two players need the green light.
Mhm.
Because obviously you made it to the league, so everybody that's made it to the league has had those moments where they show that
Mhm.
they got some kind of dog in them. It may be a
Right.
Chihuahua, maybe it's a Rottweiler, maybe it's a pit bull. But that I think we all know how hard it is to make a WNBA roster. So everybody that's made a league roster has shown they got something in them, and I think those two players have shown previously that they got it in them. Like we talked about Odyssey in the Aces series, she had that green light clearly. And I think that's why Crystal didn't play because she was outsized, which makes sense. Like not every lineup is going to be the great matchup for the next game. So logistically, that's how the game of basketball goes. So I forgot to mention Odyssey. I'd love to see Odyssey on the Dallas roster coming up next year.
Yeah, I think she's good for the bench. If she decides to want to score more. I think a lot of times she seemed a bit hesitant or not confident in her shot. And if you
Mhm.
know the Odyssey Sims from back in the day, Odyssey was a dog, Odyssey was her, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And obviously she's older, a different role on a different level of basketball, so that's going to change. But she does have moments where she could shine and she just chooses not to. So I think if we can get that out of her, for sure, keep her around. Um,
One of
and
the things that I think might have been a dynamic for her, that I was kind of, thinking about kind of like a season recap. And I think the fact that she is really early on in coming back to the league
mhm,
after time off, after having a baby and things like that. So that may be just, her getting her feet under herself and really getting back in that mode. So we might see Baylor days, Odyssey Sims again. It just might take a little bit, which I would love to see.
yeah, for sure. But her Burton, who I think
Yeah, Veronica Burton.
still growing. But I don't know if it's enough to keep her right now. Because if Dallas is going to get a championship, they need some people right now, before that window of Satu and Enrique closes. So yeah, they definitely need a stronger post presence, and just more shooters, I would think, which keeps Enrique from overdoing it, because a lot of people will be like, oh, she dribbles too much or she shoots too much and she'll shoot you out the game. But if
Somebody
nobody
else got to
else is
do
going
it.
to step up and shoot, like, what do you expect her to do?
Yeah,
You know? But yeah, definitely look for Satu to be healthier. But I think the Wings coaching staff really has their work cut out for them as far as the roster moves that they make going
absolutely.
into next season. Um,
But it's great to see them make franchise history and make it as far as they did this year, and really good to see the progress of the organization for sure.
yeah, I definitely think you have the right coaches in place. It's just getting the right personnel on the court.
Mhm.
Um, so last but not least,
Another player before we jump off, I think another player that also needs a green light, which because we kind of saw it towards the end of the season. I think Natasha, somebody needs to say, Natasha, you got the green light. Like, let it fly, drive.
it's just Natasha not being 100%, because almost every game I've seen an issue with like her back or her knee, and them having to work her out every game before that. So it made me wonder, like, is she not 100%, or is it just she's not the Natasha of yesterday anymore? Um, but for sure, when she made it to Dallas, I was like, yeah, she's one of my favorites already. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And we saw that spark with her early on. It's just later in the season she wasn't the same as she was early in the season. So I don't know. Hopefully Natasha can get back into shape and turn it around for next season.
absolutely. I know she's playing in Europe, so I hope she has time in between seasons to properly rehab and really give her body the rest
Mhm.
it needs.
Yeah. But we talked about expansion earlier. Thoughts on Golden State being the location? That surprised me.
It surprised me too. I thought for sure they were going to say Toronto. I know Toronto's off the list because from what I understand, the entertainment organization won't budge on giving more time slots, which doesn't make sense. And then we also have Denver. They're saying that there's going to be one more before the end of the year.
Mhm.
But I did not see Golden State on the map at all. So it's going to be interesting. I think it's a great place to have the Warriors as a brother team. Just as an organization that's delivered championships multiple times with players who respect are invested into women's basketball, coaching staff that respects and is invested in women's basketball. So I think it's a good thing for the game and the kind of partnership I've been advocating for. Doesn't have to be an NFL team. Just
Mhm.
whatever pairing logistically makes sense and can be a support and solid foundation to help the W grow. Those teams be um, an established franchise.
Yeah. I like it for Golden State. And of course we've been screaming for expansion for a while now. And I think it just brings more competitiveness to the league, because you are going to have those roster changes. And I mean, maybe, you see like the Aces teams, a lot of times the expansion team is the one to dominate, off rip. So I don't know. I think
Mhm.
that's going to be definitely a good thing for the league, but for Golden State as well.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna go ahead and make another request of whoever it is in the league office that listens to that take. First of all, thank you. I appreciate you and the work that you do. Um, let's add more games to next year's season. They expanded the schedule for this year. I think the league has proven that it deserves more games. Let's add a few more games. Let's increase pay, because obviously more games means more wear and tear on bodies,
Mhm.
less time to recover in between European seasons and everything else that they're doing. So let's make those moves to keep expanding. I don't think the expansion team should be the only place where expansion should be. There are other ways that the league can expand and grow in ways that'll be helpful moving forward.
For sure. And one of those ways is we need the final series to get at least 7 games.
7 games,
3
please.
out of 5 ain't cutting it for me. It's not it.
Yeah.
Not it.
I don't even like best of three for first round. I think, if anything, all the rounds except for finals should be best of five, and then 7 game finals. I think that they should, yeah.
Yeah.
There's those
Um,
little things that just, it's like, why? It's like you lower, like there's those little moments where it's like, so why are you trying to lower the rim?
Right.
That's what it feels
Right.
like. It's like y'all aren't actually lowering the rim, but you're making these small changes that virtually you might as well lower the rim.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know. That 3 or 5 is not cutting it for me. I think you're cutting the season short, which you don't necessarily need to, because at the end of the day, you still have players going overseas when they should be able to continue to play in a an efficient amount long of a season, you know.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we'll see. Go ahead and get your James Harden take off because I know it's brewing.
Um, like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, this man is a fraud. Um, I think that everybody has a chance to evolve and become a better person. And year after year, he continues to show us that he's not taking those chances. In franchise after franchise, he's proving that he's not taking those chances. And I just think that maybe those teams that he's robbed in the duration of his career need to come together for a class action lawsuit to retain as much of their investments as were stolen as possible.
Right.
Is he actually going to show up for this season? He always wants to trade. He's never happy. I don't, and not that he should stay somewhere he's not happy.
Mhm.
But if you are going like you're going to play and show up for the first few practices and then just stop out of nowhere, I don't think that builds your case for a team wanting to sign you.
Mhm.
I wouldn't sign him if I was a GM of a organization. He's not trustworthy. He's not dependable, and he's not delivering. I don't understand. I want to understand because this man is making a lot of money
Yeah.
playing the game that he loves, living a dream. Like you're making it way more complicated and difficult than it has to be.
Yep.
There's people that would kill for the opportunities that he has. First of all, Adidas, James Harden. How does James Harden have a shoe and Asia Wilson doesn't? But I hope Nike gets it together. I know that LeBron has already pushed for her to get a shoe, but that one I'm a little bit upset about still.
Now hold on, because you just
Still.
brought up something. Now I need to, before I say this,
Hmm?
I said you just brought up a valid point, and before I say this, let me fact check myself. Your girl Sabrina got a shoe, right?
Yeah.
Why? What? How do we get here? Is
You know
it?
why.
Is it the? I'll say it. Is it the Kobe connection? That's not fair. That's not fair because she ain't living up to that hype.
No. I think that yeah, I don't it
I'm
just doesn't make sense
have a shoe Asia
after
deserves.
the
I'm
because
not.
this would be the perfect platform to after last year's MVP championship roll out a shoe time this year. Sell out. On site, sell out. Sabrina's shoes are sitting. I'm a sneakerhead.
Mhm,
I monitor these things and like I'm not saying we expected her to sell out, but Asia would sell out.
mhm.
I think we all know that.
Yeah. For
Um, MV period.
sure.
Oh, can we talk about how lit the Aces are as a team though?
Yeah.
Um, they're so much fun to watch, and I tweeted about this, and maybe once again, whoever it is that listens that has some pull and some push, you know how HBO Max, whatever they're calling themselves these days, has Hard Knocks.
Mhm,
The WNBA version in the very first season, maybe all the seasons if they continue on this reign, they're building a dynasty.
mhm.
I need the season to feature the Aces, because they're a team with a lot of levels to them and layers to them on and off the court, and they're so much fun to watch. They're funny, and I think it would make for a great show. Just my
I,
opinion. I'd love some writers creator credit, but I just want to see it happen more than anything.
I think you have to strike that iron while it's hot too, before you have a situation where that team is broken up. So that's a really good idea. Somebody out there listening should put that in motion
Hmm.
for sure, especially
But
with their
postseason,
facility.
post championship Asia,
Yeah.
a vibe, for the next month or so, probably it be a vibe. Like just like last year, she said 4 shots last year, 8 shots this year. Maybe next year it might be 16. Who knows?
There you go. But yeah, I mean, they have the facility for it for sure. And then we just talked about how bad off Phoenix was right now, and they're getting a new facility. So
The
it's
money's
sad.
somewhere.
Yeah, like you got to strike the iron while it's hot with that type of stuff.
Yet y'all still got people flying coach commercial.
Child,
I
I don't get it.
I have boned the pit. I like there's it's a problem for me because these are all minor areas that can be addressed.
Hmm.
I understand that expansion is not easy, but there's all these little things in day-to-day operations that can be adjusted to improve both the league, the players, everything. And it's like, what are the players going to have to do to get it?
Right.
I don't know. I'm not sure exactly when the next CBA is going to be coming up, but I think that this is the time for them to put their foot down. If they need to lock out, I support it as a fan, to kind of to put a lot of those foundational pieces that they need in place to get things rolling in the right direction. Now, the league has done a lot of things to improve and grow, and I'm not going to not give them their credit for that. But at the same time, it's like you could do better. There's a lot that you could do to improve.
Yeah, for sure. Well, any other hot takes before we head out of here?
Yeah, all I got is James. I think that it's funny to me. Nobody's. I've stayed consistent on my perspective of this man, who he is as a person, a professional. If I stop showing up to one job, I'm gonna get fired. If I go to a job, I'm consistent, and that's on my resume that I'm only somewhere for 5 minutes. Hiring managers are gonna be like,
Right.
if I no shaw, no call my job, I'm there. I mean, I've proven my worth, so I might get a little bit of leeway, but at some point they're gonna be like, okay, what's going on? You out of here. What are we
Right.
paying you for?
Right.
Um, and so it's interesting to me. I don't know how much longer all different teams are gonna continue to put up with his antics. I think this might be the end of the road. Which I hope, because get somebody
Grayson,
that wants the roster spot.
he's over it.
Give it to somebody that wants to play.
You know, um, oh, we gotta do a NBA segment because, yeah, that whole Kevin Porter Jr. situation, I got something to say.
Can we throw in Ryan Williams too?
Who? Raquana? Oh yeah, we
Yeah.
talked about Raquana. My thing with Kevin Porter Jr. situation is this: the
Shorty saying he
Rockets,
didn't hit her now.
Rockets traded him for the Thunder to waive him, but to me, that's not really like kicking him out the league. You know,
Mm-mm,
there should be no place for this in either league, in any league.
mm-mm.
You know what I
No.
mean? Yeah, for that to still be dragging on the way that it is, I don't know if it's they need more evidence or something like that. Somebody's not cooperating. I don't know what it is, but that's crazy for him to just be traded and then waived. And I mean, he still has the opportunity to come back. So,
Yeah, I think that all leagues need to draw a straight line in the sand when it comes to offenses like that and say this is not acceptable, and maybe hand out some lifetime bans.
mhm,
Because at some point they're gonna have to make a statement because they're tiptoeing line, and just like, well, I mean, the NFL took a hard stance on it
yeah,
a few years ago, so maybe something similar to that, but they've got to change their approach. Definitely, I agree with you.
for sure, for sure. Well, that's all we have for this segment of hot take season. Y'all hit us up with your hot takes. Give us your take on what you thought about this WNBA finals. Is Sabrina a scammer or not? And if you agree with Grace on James Harden being a scammer, let us know that too.
Yeah, tweet
Y'all,
me back, please. We can go back and forth.
for sure, for sure. But again, thank y'all for tuning in. Y'all keep it here for another segment coming up soon. Y'all be blessed.